Hello everyone, well, back for another video. This time we're looking at a bit of a sort of a driving review of my VX R8 or HSV R8 Clubsport. This is the LS2 V8 version. If you haven't seen my previous video, I've done like a quick sort of walk around video, a bit of an introduction of the car. I will link it somewhere up here, one of these corners. We'll come up with something right now, and you can have a look at that if you haven't already had a look around the car already. Today we're just going to take it for a little drive. We're in a nice national park in the UK. For once it's actually sunny, which is quite nice. So we're just going to have a bit of a drive. I'm going to tell you how it feels. I have had a huge amount of cars, lots of sports cars. I have modified cars and had classic cars. I was sort of, I'm not going to say I'm some kind of guru or anything like that, but I do have a reasonable amount of experience with cars. I was sort of messing around with cars from 13 years old, as I'm sure many other people have also been in that position as well. But I think got a reasonable grasp of what makes a good car, what makes a bad car, driving dynamics, things like that, and I'll go through that with you. So without much ado, let's go. First thing, sounds bloody great. It really does. So we've got an LS2 V8 Chevy small block, so same sort of motor as the Corvette. I think the Corvette had 400 horsepower, but in the HSV, the Holden Special Vehicles R8, oh god, we've got a lorry here, my god, he did not give me much space. People are kind of dicks around here for driving. But anyway, the HSV R8 Clubsport actually had a little bit more power than the 6-litre Corvette. The 6-litre Corvette came out with about 400 horsepower, and HSV did a little bit of tweaking on this engine and made it 414 horsepower. So a little bit more. I believe that was for a little bit of work through the exhaust manifolds, just make it a bit freer flowing for the application. And yeah, this car itself, if you haven't seen my previous video, which I said I would link before, is actually around 440 horsepower. So this has had a remap from Walkinshaw Performance in the UK. It's had an OTR induction kit, so over the radiator, provides a clearer path of air, improves response a little bit, and it also has a Wartech switchable exhaust, which is currently stuck in loud setting right now, which is good for driving and things like that and having a bit of fun, but it isn't great for neighbours. So I need to have a look at like freeing the flaps that are basically probably just going to be sort of stuck at the minute. So where should we go? Should we go right? Let's have a little pull quickly. Well, she's a big car, weight wise 1830 kilograms, so quite porky if we're entirely honest, but whatever HSV have done, and on this particular car it puts its power down like you would not believe. So it came with an LSD from factory. I've driven high power rear-wheel drive Cosworths, things like that, M346s, Skylines, all sorts of things like that. You know, they come on boost, and then you sort of like, you kind of pray in the wet or any sort of muddy conditions, which you get a lot in the UK, surprisingly. So for real world performance, whatever they've done in terms of suspension settings and chassis, it works amazingly. I had a test drive of a F82, are they called F82s? The M4, the first version of the M4, 430 horsepower M4, and on sort of British B roads, which I tend to have my fun on, it was just spiky power delivery. You go around a corner, and yes, I know you've got to a throttle pedal that is adjustable. I totally get that, particularly on a rear-wheel drive car. It's one of the first things you need to understand, is that the throttle is adjustable via you. But the power delivery and how it would increase torque and ramp it up very quickly in the M4 put me off of the car, in terms of stability, traction and things like that. Now it might be different where you live, like in the US, if you've got like nice wide roads, it's pretty dry. In the UK, generally where I drive, which are sort of national parks, hilly national parks, it's muddy, it's wet, traction is always a bit of an issue. So when I sort of drove this, it was a revelation. I didn't think at all a 440 horsepower car would get its power down as well as this can. Hopefully we'll get around the next corner. I'll just show you, like, dropping it down into second gear, hopefully. Many cars, similar sort of horsepower, you'd have tyre slip, like guaranteed. So second gear, absolutely fine. And we're slowing down for another corner. So yeah, a massive thing for the HSV R8 Clubsport or VX R8. I'm going to refer to it as a HSV from now onward, because that is what it is. The VX R8 is simply a HSV R8 Clubsport with a Vauxhall badge. The only changes with the Vauxhall badges, and they have a fog light on the bottom of the bumper at the back. Other than that, there's not much of a difference spec-wise. For Australian viewers, the VX R8 is kind of in between the Clubsport and the GTS. It didn't get the fancy suspension, but it got the GTS sort of sport seats. Yeah, so let's go to driving dynamics. I've read quite a few reviews of this car where they've said that the steering is quite poor. I would not agree with that. But there is a caveat on this car. This car has had a lot of money spent on it. It's had Super Pro, poly bushers in the suspension. It's got a Pedal Sport suspension, which is a standard height sport suspension. So operated dampers, slightly operated springs, but standard height. That is quite a good thing for me, because like with potholes in the UK and off cambers, crap roads that we have in the UK, rather than having a super stiff suspension like a coilover setup or something where you're bouncing all over the place and having traction issues sometimes, where it's too stiff or doesn't have enough suspension travel, this is so competent. It actually reminds me of the first sort of super impressors that came out, the GC8. They were so competent down a country lane, you could really just throw them down a country lane. And this is the same sort of thing. It grips. I mean, if you're an absolute idiot, you turn the traction control off and you're going for it in the wet, yeah, you could get into trouble. But it's a long wheelbase car. It is pretty long. It's pretty much 5 meters, I think, in length. As a result, it doesn't really snap away from you when you lose traction. It's more of a slow progression, which is quite good if you're sort of new to rear-wheel drive and things like that. Engine wise, it sounds fantastic. I mean, just going down a gear, that response is lovely. Revs much quicker than I thought when sort of going down a gear. We need to go down into second in a minute, so let's just do that. It sounds great. To my ears, that sounds fantastic. We're in some very sort of tight roads here, by the way. If it seems like I'm driving slowly, we are on wet, muddy roads. It's autumn here, or fall for the US guys, and all the leaves have sort of started to decompose on the actual road, so it's like a thin film of sort of brown, muddy leaves, and it is, yeah, it's a little bit slippy, so we'll just take it easy. But one massive benefit of the HSV R8 is the stability control is actually tuned to be sort of sports orientated. It allows you to have a little bit of slip, not like a lot of other cars. I'm talking about Volkswagen, Audis, BMWs. They absolutely shit themselves if the wheel spins at all. Here you can have a little bit of fun and it keeps you safe. For me, that's an important factor. That's really impressive. Where was I? I was talking about the steering, wasn't I? Steering wise, yeah, a lot of journalists mentioned that it was quite light, and on this car with the pedal suspension, I wouldn't say that. It's the rack is quite quick. You're not needing to move the wheel much in terms of your actual steering input, getting the car to move around. Now that might be a component of the sport suspension. When you go for a stiffer suspension, your steering changes effectively, and how the car sort of responds to inputs changes. We have a big puddle here. It's been raining a lot in the Lake District. Here we go. Sorry about that. Don't want to hydrolock it or some crap like that. But yeah, I think the steering's actually quite good. Nothing to. I mean, is it a Lotus Elise in terms of like steering feedback? No, I've had a lot worse, and if anything, I'd rather have a quicker rack, which is what this has. Like, you really don't have to put armfuls of lock to get it around a corner. I'm talking about Porsche 996 here, you know, I mean, they do that. I have a 996 Thrower 4S, that's why I mentioned that. You need quite a bit of steering lock to get them moving. Steering input, I should say, really. Throttle, very good. This car has been remapped, so it's had a tune, as the Americans like to say it. There's no O in it, but I don't know. Yeah, so the response is good. They've obviously done a little bit on ignition timing, I expect, and the way in which the electronic throttle behaves. Yeah, it's good. Throttle response is very nice. Does the car feel like it's overpowered? No. I'd say it's just right. This is the baby HSV R8 of the sort of the VE generation. So we also had, so this is a 6-litre one. Normally with 410, 414 horsepower, you would have a 6.2, which is around 430 horsepower, and then you had some mad supercharged ones, which are just bonkers. And I haven't driven those. I'd love to drive one, by the way. But for me, considering this is the baby, it's so tractable. You can have fun in this without getting into massive trouble, and that's important. Particularly in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in a lot of other countries. It's just so anti-car. There's bloody cameras, speed cameras everywhere, coppers. Just, you know, I'm not talking about being an absolute maniac or anything like that, which I don't endorse at all, but like, I don't know, having a sprint out of a junction up to 65, 70 miles an hour is not going to kill anybody. It's kind of, you know, it's just having a little bit of fun, and just, it's so anti-car at the minute, particularly in the UK. They're on about increasing taxes for breathing, basically, in the UK, and the motorists are going to get hammered very shortly. We have a budget coming out where they release what they're going to do in terms of the country's finances, and the current chancellor who makes those decisions is just massively inept, and motorists are going to get hammered. So yeah, in the UK, having something really silly is quite difficult now. I mean, there's only certain places you can go and put your foot down. So slower speed fun up to 60 miles an hour, where you're not getting into so much trouble, and it's tractable, it's got good traction, very good traction I'd actually say, good steering input, sounds fantastic, just, yeah, it works so well. And for the amount of money that I got this car for, it's just unbelievable value for money. It really is. It's steaming up a little bit, so I'm going to just put these windows down, and as a result you're going to be able to hear the exhaust a little bit better, so you might quite like that. Yeah, I got this car for £10,000. Admittedly, it is a high mileage car, but it has been extremely well maintained, full service history, loads of bills. Had a replacement TR6060 gearbox, which has a lovely short throw on it, very good. better than my Porsche 996, which has like a plasticky feel because most of the mechanism is plastic. Absolutely ridiculous. In this car, the gearbox throw is fantastic, really, really good. It had a new differential. I mean, even though this car is quite high mileage, it's had a lot of work done to it, and that shows. It feels very tight. It's been well looked after. I hear a little bit of engine noise now and again on startup. I believe the LS2 V8 has a certain amount of piston slap when they're cold, and once we put to temperature they're fine, which this is fine as well. But I do hear that now and again. It's widely reported, sort of in Corvette circles, HSV circles, that the LS2 is a little bit sewing machine sounding. There is a certain amount of engine noise to it. I guess that's just one of those things. It is, at the end of the day, still a pushrod V8, and that sort of gets me onto the next subject of why I bought this car. I have had a lot of cars, and my biggest hate is over complex cars. Cars that are constantly beeping at you or have engine lights on. Over complex cars that are hard to run because they're always beeping or having issues with lambda sensors and things like that, poor wiring, Vanos systems, things like that, timing chain issues. We're talking about Mini compressors, things like that. An absolute nightmare. This is simple. It's a pushrod V8. It's a relatively for a pushrod V8, relatively sophisticated pushrod V8. So we have roller rockers as standard, and the lifters have rollers on them as well. They're not just cam followers that go right down onto the cam like a flat sort of follower. It has like a roller at the bottom of it, effectively, so it reduces friction. So we're in a very tight bit of road here, so just bear with me just for a second. For a pushrod V8, it's not that bad. Now, there were better LS engines as time went on. Sorry, we are very tight there. There we go. As I say, I'm in the Lake District, and some of these roads are incredibly tight. Austin 7 just drove by. That's quite cool. Like it. Let's wait for this guy to come. Yeah, come on. Jesus Christ, gotta move on. Honestly, I think some people just have like issues thinking, like their brains are just so slow. Just fucking get on with it. So yeah, engine wise it is simple. If you want to put a operated cam in this, it's something you can do at home. Yes, you'd have to study the YouTube videos and get a bit of an idea of what you're doing. You have to have a certain level of competence, but it's not like ripping an M3 E46 engine to pieces. It's all nice and simple, and I quite like that. Another bonus of the LS2 V8 is it can be tuned really quite nicely. You can supercharge them, you can turbocharge them, you can do sort of brake the heads, you can go for a nice big cam, and in time I think we might look at doing something. I like the power at the minute, but I'm sure at some point I'll probably get used to it. Shall we go? Yeah, let's go. Woo. She grunty. Let's put these windows up, mate. There we go. So, where does the LS2 HSV sort of fit? It's a big practical car with a massive V8, and in this case a 6-litre V8 with 6-speed gearbox. Where does it fit in terms of rivals? I mean, I was thinking maybe like E39 M5. That's a manual 5-litre V8, nice and simple, which is actually a good thing. In terms of more modern cars, this is a 2007 car. I don't know, similar sort of weight, I suppose. You could look at like a E92 M3. So they had a 4-litre V8, 420 horsepower, I think, from memory. And the convertible, I believe, was similar sort of weight to this. The coupe is a lot lighter, obviously, a couple hundred kilos lighter, but the convertible with its sort of steel folding roof is a similar sort of weight. I would probably have one of those. They're quite good. Engines are, you know, real screamers, but you've got a bit of a reliability thing. You've got sort of rod bearing issues. You have to get those changed. Throttle actuators, things like that. They don't like lots of cold morning starts and short journeys. An LS2 V8 will just keep going and going and going. As long as you keep on servicing it. There are loads of examples of really high mileage cars, and they tend to still make the power as well. I don't know, maybe at like 200,000 you might want to have a refresh on the heads, sort of lap the valves in, make sure they're sort of sealing okay, maybe put some new rockers on there, things like that, have a bit of a refresh. But honestly, in terms of the overall engine, it will just keep on going and going and going, and that is attractive to me as well. In terms of other cars I've had, there's not much really that's similar to this. I mean, I've had quite varied cars, but like nothing quite like this really. A big V8 is not a massively common thing in the UK. Generally, I mean, in the UK, you've got lots of small engine, crappy little cars, to be honest, like Kias and Hyundais and Toyota Yaris's and things like that. I mean, there's not a huge amount of car enthusiasts. Maybe I'd say maybe 10%, something like that, of the population into cars. Most people have like a Renault Clio or a Fiat 500. You know, people don't generally like the cars. You know, but having a big V8 in the UK is bloody good fun. Honestly, like it's such a rare thing. I know in the US and in Australia it's sort of like anything with a Chevy small block is sort of all over the place. You know, it's quite a normal thing to see. But over in the UK, where most hatchbacks are sort of 1.2 litre or 1 litre 3 cylinders, you know, big 6 litre V8 is a bit of a fire breathing dinosaur, you know what I mean? You don't see them around much. And I'm driving through Keswick right now, and there's quite a bit of neck snapping going on. Quite a few folk looking at the car. They either think I'm an absolute twat, which is possible, that's fine, I don't mind, or they're just having a good listen to that LS2 V8, which they should be doing. So suspension wise, we've got, as I said, that Peders sport suspension, very compliant, good suspension travel, not too stiff, not too soft. It's just right, I'd say, for UK roads. Puts its power down well. When you go for acceleration, you do get a little bit of dive on the nose, like where it dives and goes back up again as you go through the gears. In a way, I don't mind that. It isn't detrimental in terms of traction. Doesn't seem to unsettle the car. As I say, this puts its power down extremely well. It does have Michelins all around on this with pretty good tread, which will be helping, I'm sure. But the chassis is good, really, really good. I'm impressed. In terms of value, I just don't know what else you could get in terms of a manual V8 that is this much fun, that doesn't have stupidly long gearing. I had a Jaguar XJR, the sort of 400 horsepower supercharged one. They all, at least in the UK, came with an automatic gearbox. This automatic gearbox in the XJR R8 would always set off in second gear. So if you wanted a little bit of acceleration out of a junction or something like that, the performance was a little lacking, unless you were on a hill or an incline or something like that. I presume it had an internal gyrometer or something, and it would then select to first gear, and then it was a bit better sort of performance because you had that first gear. Yeah, and that similar kind of weight, maybe a touch lighter than this. Handled quite well for the car and the size, but nowhere near as much fun. I mean, really, I mean, a proper manual V8 is just, you can't beat it. I mean, really, it's so much fun. When I was younger, I think I was all about the performance statistics and sort of how quick it was, whether other cars were quicker than it. And as you grow older, you actually understand it's more the character of the car that's more important. This is like some massive, dopey Great Dane that sort of jumps on your lap because it thinks it's a puppy, but it's absolutely massive. It's just so much fun. It's simple. It's just bare basics fun, which is what you want. Yeah, I can't think of any other cars that I've had that compare anything like this. What was I talking? I was talking about performance. Yeah. Let me get back to that. The performance statistics and things like that is something I sort of focused on when I was younger, and I was saying that character, you know, is much more important of a car. The character, the steering feel, pedal placement, gear change feel, how long is that throw, how does it feel when you actually go through the gears and you really want to sort of take it by the scruff of the neck. Some cars that are supposedly sporty, you feel like they're resisting you. You know, it's like they don't like to be thrashed because of certain issues. Like the Porsche 996 has a massive following, and it is quite a good car. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, by the way. I've done a 996 buyer's guide where I go into that on my channel if you're interested. That has a really long throw in terms of the gearbox. The steering rack is quite slow. The steering wheel is big. All these little factors make up the character of a car. And in my video about the 996, I said, if you perhaps came from a Toyota Camry, you'd probably think Porsche 996 is great fun, sportiest car ever. But I didn't. I come from quite focused cars like Evo 6 RSs and things like that have quite quick steering racks and very short gearing. To me, the Porsche 996 felt quite diluted, a bit sort of mass market and gentle for, you know, we don't want it too hardcore. So for me, it missed the mark a little bit. Granted, with a few modifications, you can probably make it a bit better with a short shift, smaller diameter steering wheel, things like that. But for me, a bit overrated. In terms of sort of overrated and things like that, how people sort of rate things. In the UK, a lot of people listen to sort of motor journalists and think it's what they say is just, you know, is the only way. I'm talking about like Clarkson and things like that. When he mentioned the Honda Civic Type R FN2 and people were like, oh no, it's crap because Clarkson said it. In reality, it's actually a very good car and it's a great package. Motoring journalists and their views are subjective. It's subjective to the type of car they like, their upbringing, whether they're a bit snobby. I'm talking about Chris Harris here, very snobby, doesn't like Northerners. I'm not keen on him. Yeah, the VX R8, when it came out, the reviews couldn't see past the name, like the brand of the car. So as I say, in the UK, it was sold under a Vauxhall name. And in the UK, sometimes there's weird little trends of like, oh, Vauxhall are terrible. They're not, they're quite reasonable car. I've had a few Vauxhalls. I had a Astra GT 16 valve. I had a Astra Belmont where I put a 2.1 litre 8 valve engine and turboed it. Yeah, I had like a Vectra V6 GSI. They were all good cars for the value actually. But in the UK in motoring journalism, like it seems like a, it's like trendy, in-trend thing to put down a Vauxhall. Oh, who'd want to drive a Vauxhall? I just don't. It's just bollocks, basically. And as a result, when this car was reviewed, a lot of reviewers could not see past the point that it was a Vauxhall. The only Vauxhall components on this were the badges and the rear fog light. That's the only difference between this and a HSV R8 Clubsport in Australia. In Australia, HSVs are hugely rated. People love them, absolutely love them. One of the famous sort of advertising sort of things for HSV was like a tagline of "I just want one," and people do. I mean, is it the fastest car in the world? No, it isn't, but it's fucking good fun. Honestly, like that Porsche 996 in comparison to this feels sanitized. It feels turned down to 3, where it should have been around 7 or 8. This car, I know it's slightly modified with its remap and its slightly improved suspension. It's just worlds apart. It's just, yeah, fun. That's what we're talking about. It's just so much fun. I encourage you to go and get one because, like I've touched on in my other videos, we're not going to be able to buy cars like this very shortly. Fuel prices will be going sky high. Tax for road users in the UK is going to go ridiculous soon. Insurance costs. Just, if you've ever fancied something daft and stupid, you must buy it now and enjoy it. Get a loan, whatever. Sell the cat, sell your kid. Buy something stupid and silly and have your fun, but at least you're not regretting, oh, I wish I could have done that. And then you're at a point, you know, in the future where having something like this is just not going to happen. It's never going to happen. 10 years from now, I'm saying it's just not going to be a thing you can do. So yeah, do it. Find a way of owning one. When I was young, I think I was 19 years old, and it was always about sort of getting a nice car that I enjoyed. I remember taking out a loan. I was, you know, when you're really young and you're hugely into cars, like hugely, like you sort of absolutely live and breathe it, and it was so important to have like the fastest, coolest car of all of your mates. And when I was 19, I remember not even thinking about getting a loan out to buy a Celica GT4. It didn't matter, you know. It was a case of living freely and sort of just have the fun while you can. And I think that's what we must do. If you can't afford something silly right now, consider moving your finances around, because time's running out, you know, sadly. But in terms of driving and sort of showing you how this can go, it's a little tricky. I am now in the Lake District in a massive massive sort of traffic jam, really. Loads of cars in front of me driving about 20 miles an hour, and it's raining, so probably not going to go too silly. What I will do is Vicky Butler Henderson, Fifth Gear fame, did a VXR8 review on a car that looks amazingly similar to this. It isn't the actual car, I don't think. But what I will do, I will link that video up here or up here for you to have a look at. And she goes sideways, she has proper good fun in a VXR8 and gives her opinion. And I do value her opinion. She did know what she was doing. The review is of when the car came out, so around 2007. So it is period in terms of like the cost she mentioned, how much the car cost. But yeah, if you want to see this car sort of sideways, watch Vicky Butler Henderson. She could probably do a better job than I can, to be honest. Well, she definitely can. And she looks a lot better than I do. So have a watch of that. It's good fun. In the future, we've got a Draggy, a GPS app, actually in the glove box right now. I was hoping I might be able to do a test for you guys today, but it is so muddy and so wet on the road, it would just be completely pointless. So I'm going to hope in the next couple of days we're going to get some drier roads, and I'll do a quick GPS Draggy acceleration test, so see where we are with the car at the minute. As I said, I plan on maybe doing some interesting modifications on this car, so it'd be good to get like a before and after, like a bit of a baseline, and then sort of so we can compare what the modifications are actually done in real world acceleration. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I massively appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. It is completely free. My channel is very little at the minute, and if you can help in any way to try and make it grow to a point where I start getting an income from it, and then I can do some really interesting videos. I mean, there's no issue with imagination. I've got loads of ideas, but we need a little bit of cash flow. If we can get monetized and get some sort of subscribers in, I can do really quite good videos for you, hopefully. So if you can consider that, I'd hugely appreciate it. And yeah, I'm gonna continue driving in the lakes in very wet conditions. I'll wrap it up now, and yeah, take care, everyone. See you later.